So Magesh is an engineer at the Austin Hospital and a long-time student of Prout, which you will hear a lot more about today during his talk. And Magesh became introduced to this work through his interest in politics and socioeconomics. So he was first getting involved back in South Africa in the days of the freedom liberation movement, and then discovered Anandamaga and was attracted to the socio-economic aspect of Prout back in the early 80s. So he was quite surprised that a yoga organization or yogic organization had a philosophy in socioeconomics, and that really attracted him in. And now, many years later, he's still with us and here to present to you today, now involved in YogaEcology and ambassading for the Universal Bill of Rights. So today he'll be talking about economics reimagined for a sharing and caring society. Over to you, Magesh.
Namaskar, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. So in a second. So namaskar again. I'm excited to be with you today and also grateful that you decided to spend your time listening to us at YogaEcology. In this session, I will review and discuss current global economic trends. We will reframe economics centered on people. We will expand on aspects of the Universal Bill of Rights that relates to economics from a new perspective. And at the end of the session, we hope that some of the takeaways will be an increased sense of awareness of our current economic situation, a reality check on pending and desired change, an opportunity to ponder on your own role in the change process. People are looking for an alternative, as there's an increasing sense that something is not quite right. For greater context, I urge you to check out our YouTube channel on YogaEcology, because we are weaving a tapestry of social change around the concept of one human family. It is the position of YogaEcology that the entire human society constitutes one single family. That's us today. We are conditioned to believe that a totally unbalanced social construct is quite normal. Yet the data and our life experience shows us an unbalanced world driven by greed. You are part of the system, yet it doesn't feel right. Let us review this further. The desire to accumulate wealth is inherent in human nature and uncapped mental energy. We live in a world where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, where 90% of the global population owns just 15% of the wealth. We've succeeded in reducing poverty by 50% in the last 30 years. Yet, in the 21st century, people still live in extreme poverty, surviving on just $1.90. 800 million people still live in extreme poverty, surviving on just $1.90 per day. In a world of plenty, when one child is born with a silver spoon in its mouth and another dies but for a handful of grain, it is indeed a slur on humanity. A world of limited natural resources, where unlimited accumulation of wealth now needs to be questioned. In the race to exploit natural resources, the short-term focus gives little consideration to providing a sustainable future. Due to the deficiencies, capitalism gives rise to mega corporations, which in turn accumulates enormous wealth and economic power, indulging in corrupt practices to sustain their power base rather than benefiting people. A direct result of this is the uncertainty in people's livelihood, because mega corporations are removed from the local economic environment. Let us look at some examples of corruption. You might have heard the story about Royal Dutch Shell and the Ogoni people of southern Nigeria. The oil fields in Ogoniland have been in operation since the 1950s. Shell exploited the lack of environmental safeguards in Nigeria, creating extensive hazardous oil spills in the area. This resulted in the destruction of vital farmland and livelihood of the Ogoni people and other communities based in the Niger Delta. The indigenous way of life and the health of the local population had been devastated. The United Nations Environmental Agency reported in 2011 that it would take 30 years for a restoration plan to succeed. This level of neglect, disregard, and exploitation would never have occurred in a first world environment. The fracking story in Camden, Sydney. This had come to light a few years ago in 2018 regarding the coal seam gas wells in Camden, Sydney. Residents complained of numerous ailments both in children and adults, including nausea, hay fever, and asthma. This was denied by the representative of APPEA, the Australian Petroleum Production and Exploration Association. Would this person have had the same opinion if he lived in the area and his family suffered the same health effects? The point here is that remote stakeholders are not directly impacted by the environmental consequences of their investments. The call for change is now rampant. It is everywhere, in healthcare, in food security, in job security, in the cry for a safe environment. The tipping point of change has now been reached. This is a small window into an enormous challenge we face. We live in a technologically advanced world, yet we are separated into economic classes of first, third world, first world, and developing nations. People live in uncertainty of meeting their basic needs of jobs, food, housing, and education. A better world is possible. We know what we do not want, but how do we frame what we actually want? It is hugely important we get this right. Human beings anywhere in the world have the same basic needs. They cry when they feel pain, they bleed when they are cut, they laugh when they are happy, and everyone wants to live, to thrive. Since the dawn of civilization, we've been attempting to develop a social order to meet the needs of all people. We have seen the failures of Marxist socialism and neoliberal capitalism. We are now facing an ideological vacuum. The challenge we face as a society is to meet all the needs of all people as if we are one family. How would a family approach this? In our previous slides, in our previous events, you will see that we've been developing a tapestry of a new humanity. With each succeeding event, we paint a few more dots in this picture, thereby developing an innovative and social movement for the forward march of humanity. This is a massive global task, providing lots of applied concepts and connecting them in new ways. Hence, I recommend you watch the recordings of previous events on YogaEcology YouTube channel, and you will begin to see the big picture. How do we ensure safety and certainty for all, including plants and animals? Security is both physical and psychological. Everyone wants to feel secure. We are habitual beings. We need certainty. For example, in the COVID environment, people became anxious due to the uncertainty of jobs and healthcare. Providing jobs and a minimum income ensures certainty and security for all. Already the concept of universal basic income, the UBI, has been trialed in Finland with positive results, where people seem to have a greater confidence in their future. Germany is now beginning their own trials. It can be done. YogaEcology advocates as a key component of certainty and security the Universal Bill of Rights, which guarantees and protects the rights of all living beings. Through thousands of years of social evolution, this is the first time we see a charter of rights founded on the most fundamental state of being, universal consciousness. Consciousness is simply defined as that immanent state of everything in the universe, that which exists in each and every atom in this universe. It is foundational to all existence. However, in this presentation, we will be focusing primarily on the socio-economic aspect. The UBR guarantees basic needs as a human right, that is food, clothing, education, healthcare, housing. The UBR guarantees purchasing power through providing adequate remuneration for one's labor. The range of disposable income of any person will be set by society to prevent excessive wealth creation, which leads to socio-economic exploitation. This is an interesting concept. Let's discuss this further in the Q&A session. So how do we go about achieving all of this? The UBR proposes that the economy is restructured to the most localized level possible. That's fundamental. We have seen the ills of a centralized economy, whether Marxist or capitalist, where there is loss of economic security for local communities. Remembering the stories regarding the Ogoni people and the Camden fracking case. The UBR proposes conversion of the majority of private enterprise into cooperatives. Co-ops are a mechanism to focus on local wealth creation, local socioeconomic development, and promoting the well-being of the local community. We will discuss co-ops further in the next slide. I now draw your attention to the earlier slide regarding leadership and corruption. A key component of the UBR is the need for ethical leadership, that is, benevolent servant leadership, where people aspiring to these roles see this as a sacred duty of service. This is a stark change from our current reality. We will discuss this in the following slides. In a corporation, an employee is an expense, whereas in a co-op, the employee transfers to the other side of the equation and becomes part owner. Even though corporations have evolved from single bottom line to triple bottom line, quadruple bottom line profit indicators, by comparison, co-ops fundamentally change the economic landscape by balancing profits with individuals and community well-being. It is important to note that human beings are not just economic beings and must be supported in their pursuit for self-liberation in the perspective of yoga, or self-actualization as described in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Remembering the slide on corruption, the UBR creates and expresses the Charter of Principles. The policies derived from it will make the requirement for ethical leadership explicit. For example, leaders will have to fully commit to the service of the people, the likes of Nelson Mandela. This new leadership must walk the talk in terms of espousing an expanded humanity that extends empathy to all life forms. Utility value and existential value. Because of a mindset driven by materialism, the current paradigm focuses exclusively on utility value, whereas the UBR sees it differently. All life emerges from a singular consciousness. Therefore, all life has its own intrinsic existential value. This embedded perspective makes exploitation difficult to justify. This planet and its resources is something we inherit from past generations and is something we bequeath to future generations. So let's recreate our institutions to operate like a family. When every human being is a single point source of infinite consciousness emerging from the same source, which is the same as the goal of Ananda or limitless happiness, then let's create a process where our institutions operate like a family, moving together. Cooperation and unconditional love extending to all and protected by a universal Bill of Rights. These are some of the ideas extrapolated from a UBR. Come join us and work for this innovative movement in creating the next chapter of human history. We are creating a networking software platform to further evolve this concept and the movement. We believe that in every sector of individual and social development, we can do better. I invite you, join us. My dear brothers and sisters, the destructiveness, the futility of materialism is over. We begin to synthesize a new social order based on consciousness. The crimson dawn of a new era for all living beings awaits us. I thank you.